Sometime in the last month, you've probably heard that Social Security goes broke in 2032. Maybe it was a headline, maybe a video with a red arrow and a scared face, maybe your brother-in-law, who's sure of it. The fund runs dry in 6 years. Get your money while you can. And this one has teeth, because unlike most retirement rumors, part of it comes from an official government report. So let's do the honest thing and actually check it. Because the date is real. The percentage you've heard is real. And the conclusion almost everyone draws from it, that your check goes to zero, that a cut has been decided, that you'd better claim early before it's gone. That part is false. And acting on the false part could cost you far more than the thing you're afraid of. Here's the short version. If Congress does nothing at all by 2032, checks would fall to 78 cents on the dollar, not to zero. And nobody has passed a cut. Let me show you exactly what the report says, what the politicians actually said, and the one number to check on your own statement this week. I'm Jeffrey. On this channel, we take the retirement headline everyone's heard and check it against the actual rule. No fear, no politics, just what's written down and what it means for your check. Here's the deal for the next 20 minutes. First, the real report behind the scare, the 2026 Trustees Report, and the honest math of the 22% number. Then, what the trust fund runs out actually means, because it does not mean what it sounds like. Then, the two plans in Washington right now. One from Speaker Johnson, one from Representative Larson. What each one actually says, in their own words, not mine. And you'll meet three people at three different ages staring at the same headline. A woman already collecting, a man about to claim early out of fear, and a couple 10 years out. Because the right move is completely different for each of them. One of them is probably you. And near the end, I'll give you a 2-minute check you can run on your own Social Security statement that turns this whole scary story into one concrete number for your own retirement. And before we open the report, let me name why this particular claim fools so many careful people. Because it's not carelessness, it's vocabulary. The words trust fund depleted sound exactly like bank account empty. And if your bank account hits zero, the checks stop. That's the picture everyone carries. But Social Security is not a bank account you're drawing down. It's a pipe. As of 2026, money flows in from the payroll taxes of more than 180 million working people every single payday and flows out to beneficiaries the same month. The trust fund is a buffer tank sitting on top of that pipe, built up in the years when more came in than went out. The tank can run dry. The pipe keeps flowing. And that one picture, tank versus pipe, is the difference between you get nothing and what the report actually projects. Hold on to it, because every scary headline you've seen is selling you the empty bank account, and the report itself is describing a smaller pipe. So here's where this all comes from, and credit where due. This isn't an invented rumor. On June 9th, the Social Security trustees released their annual report, and it made real news. The projection, the main retirement trust fund, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Fund, the one that pays retirement checks, is now projected to run out of reserves in late 2032, a quarter sooner than last year's report projected, and across the year line into 2032. And the report puts a number on what happens if Congress does nothing between now and then. Benefits would be cut by about 22%. For people already collecting and new retirees alike. That's the real source. An official report, real date, real percentage. The fear videos didn't make those up. What they did, and this is the whole trick, is quietly swap benefits fall to 78% if Congress does nothing for Social Security goes broke and Washington is cutting your check. Same numbers, completely different sentence. So let's take the real one apart. Here's the math under that 22%, because once you see it, the goes broke story falls apart on its own. Every payday, workers and employers each pay 6.2% of wages into Social Security. That money doesn't sit in an account with your name on it. It goes right back out the door as this month's benefit checks. Right now, those incoming taxes cover most, but not all, of the benefits going out. The gap is covered by the trust fund, the buffer tank, which has been drawing down. The report projects the tank hits empty in late 2032. At that moment, the pipe is still delivering enough payroll tax to cover roughly 78% of scheduled benefits. Forever, by the way. That's not a one-year number. Workers don't stop working in 2032, and their taxes don't stop arriving. So the honest worst case, the absolute do-nothing scenario, is a 22% cut, not a stop check. That is a genuinely serious number, and I'm not going to shrink it. But it is a completely different animal from zero. Now, one detail from this year's report that deserves an honest minute, because it's the reason your feed lit up now and not last year. The depletion date moved. Last year's report said 2033. This year's says late 2032, 1 quarter closer, and across the year line, which is why every headline suddenly says 2032. And part of the reason is an irony almost nobody in your feed will say out loud. It's the 2025 tax law, the one we checked in the last episode, the no tax on Social Security headline. Several of its provisions lowered how much tax revenue flows in connected to Social Security benefits. Less money into the pipe, and the buffer tank drains faster. So some of the same messaging that promised to help seniors also, mechanically, moved this deadline closer. That's not a partisan point. It's arithmetic, and the trustees state it plainly. The report also lowered its long-range assumptions: fewer future births, less immigration, fewer future workers, pushing the same direction. So the claim check here isn't, there's no problem. The gap is real, it's structural, and it just moved closer. It's that the problem is a 22% problem, not a zero problem, and that distinction is worth actual dollars to you, as you're about to see. Let's make 22% concrete, because percentages hide. The average retirement benefit right now is about $2,017 a month. A 22% cut takes roughly $443 off that, about $5,300 a year. The average check would land around $1,570. That's real, painful money. For a lot of retirees, that's the grocery budget, or the Medicare premiums plus the utilities. I want you to feel the true size of it. Serious enough to plan for, nowhere near, you get nothing. And remember the shape of the sentence. This is what the report projects if Congress does nothing at all for the next 6 years. Which brings up the obvious question. Will they do nothing? History has an answer to that one, and so does the present. 2 plans are on the table in Washington right now, and here's the part the videos won't. One more piece of fine print from the report, because you may hear the year 2034 thrown around and wonder who's lying. Nobody is. They're describing 2 different funds. Social Security actually runs 2 trust funds, the big one for retirees and survivors, and a separate, smaller one for disability benefits. The disability fund is in better shape. If Congress merged the 2 funds into one pot, the combined money would carry full benefits about 2 years further, to roughly 2034. But here's the catch, people skip. Merging them isn't automatic. It takes an act of Congress, a law, just like every other fix on the menu. So when one video says 2032 and another says 2034, that's the difference. 2032 is the retirement fund on its own, on autopilot. 2034 is what a paper merge would buy. Interestingly, the Larson bill we'll get to in a minute actually includes that merge, a single trust fund, as one of its provisions. Either way, the shape of the story doesn't change. A real deadline several years out that Congress has to act on, which is exactly why the political noise started. So let's go listen to it properly. Let me bring this down to a kitchen table. Meet Arlene. She's 68, widowed, collecting $1,900 a month, and she saw one of those videos with the red arrow. She didn't sleep well. The next morning, she was half convinced she should take money out of her small IRA now, while things still work. And she even wondered whether her checks would just stop in 2032. Here's Arlene's actual situation, straight from the report. Her check keeps arriving in 2032 no matter what. The pipe doesn't close. Her true worst case, the full do-nothing scenario, is her $1,900 becoming roughly $1,480. Painful? Absolutely. A reason to drain her IRA early and pay tax now on money she didn't need to touch? No. That move is permanent and certain to hedge a scenario that is neither. For Arlene, the honest to-do list is short. Know her floor number, keep her withdrawal plan, and watch what Congress actually votes on, not what thumbnails scream. And that floor number, her benefit times 0.78, takes 2 minutes to compute. We'll do yours before the end. Let me actually run Arlene's numbers, because this 2-minute exercise is the whole antidote, and I want you to see it done once before you do your own. Arlene's check is $1,900 a month. Her floor, the official do-nothing worst case, is 1,900 times 0.78, $1,482. The gap between her life today and the worst case is $418 a month. Now watch what happens to her thinking. Social Security is collapsing is unanswerable. You can't budget against a collapse. I might need to cover $418 a month starting in 2032 if Washington fully stalls. That's a Tuesday afternoon planning problem. She can look at whether her IRA could throw off that much. She can look at one expense. She can do absolutely nothing and know exactly what she's risking. And one more thing for Arlene specifically, because she's a widow. Her survivor benefit works the same way. It's part of the same system, funded by the same pipe. The same .78 logic applies. There's no separate cliff hiding in survivor benefits. That's the entire trick of this episode. Replace a feeling with a number you can plan against, a feeling you can only lose sleep against. Now the politics, carefully, both sides, their own words. In a radio interview this month, Speaker Mike Johnson said that mandatory spending, and he listed Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, quote, have to be adjusted and fixed. And that, quote, we have a plan to do that next year. He pointed at the national debt, over $40 trillion as of that July 2026 interview, his figure, and said desperate times call for desperate measures. That clip is the engine behind half the videos in your feed. But here's what those videos usually leave out. Within days, Johnson posted a clarification. Quote, when Republicans talk about fixing Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, we are not talking about reducing a single benefit. He said the plan targets, quote, fraud and inefficiencies, with the goal to, quote, preserve the essential benefits. Now, you can take that at face value, or you can be skeptical of it. Some senators from his own party publicly noted that words like adjusted have historically preceded benefit changes. Both of those are opinions. Here are the facts. There is no published Johnson plan text. Nothing has been introduced. Nothing has been voted on. Nobody can honestly tell you today what's in a plan that doesn't exist on paper yet, including the people making videos about it. So before anyone's fans get upset with me, here's the scoreboard, kept on 3 separate shelves, and I'd suggest you keep them separate too. Shelf 1. What's been said? Johnson's adjusted and fixed, followed by his own walkback. Words, on the record, both directions. Shelf 2. What exists on paper? Exactly one bill so far, and you're about to hear what's in it. Shelf 3. What has passed? Nothing. Zero. Not one benefit changed by $1. Every scary video you've seen lives entirely on Shelf 1. Keep the 3 shelves straight, and no headline, from either side, can spin you. And on the other side of the aisle, there is a bill with actual text, and it goes the opposite direction from everything you've been scared with. On June 29th, Representative John Larson introduced H.R. 9519, the Social Security 2100 Act. What's in it? From the bill text itself, an across-the-board benefit increase, a more generous cost of living formula tilted toward what seniors actually buy, a higher minimum benefit for people who worked long careers at low wages, better survivor benefits for 2-income couples, higher income thresholds before your benefits become taxable, and the funding side, it would apply the payroll tax to individual earnings above $400,000 a year. Right now, payroll tax stops at the cap. In 2026, that's $184,500. Every dollar of wages above that pays nothing into Social Security. Now the honesty check on this bill, because we check claims in both directions here. It was referred to committee with 0 co-sponsors so far, and versions of this same act have been introduced repeatedly for over a decade without passing. So, one side has a plan with no text, the other has text with no momentum. That's the actual state of play. Nothing decided in either direction. So why is your feed so sure? Because certainty gets clicks. Which brings me to the person the fear actually hurts. Meet Gene. He's 62, still working part-time, and his full retirement age is 67. Gene watched 3 of those videos in a row, and he's made a decision that feels like self-defense. He's going to claim Social Security now. Lock it in before they cut it. Gene, I need you to see the math before you sign anything, because this is the single most expensive mistake in this whole story. If Gene claims at 62, he gets 70% of his full benefit. Permanently. That's the standard early claiming reduction, a 30% cut for life that never snaps back. So look at what Gene is actually doing. He is accepting a guaranteed, certain, permanent 30% cut today to protect himself from a possible 22% cut 6 years from now. one that Congress has fixed its way out of every single time before, and one that both parties are currently promising, on the record, not to let happen. He's paying more than the ransom to avoid the kidnapping. And it gets worse. If Congress does fix the gap, Gene is left holding the 30% cut anyway, with no do-over. Claiming early can be right for other reasons: health, cash flow, no other income. We did a full episode on that. But claiming early to outrun a headline? The headline wins, and Gene loses in every version of the future. Quick gut check, and be honest. Type it in the comments, yes or no. Is Social Security going to be more than half of your retirement income? Because that answer changes what this whole report means for you. If yes, your floor number matters most. We'll compute it in a minute. If no, this is a planning input, not an emergency. Either way, you're about to be ahead of 90% of the people who watched a Red Arrow video and either panicked or scrolled on. And there's one more group we haven't talked about: the people who have the most time, and quietly, the most power in this story. Meet Marcus and Dana. He's 56, she's 55. Retirement is about 10 years away, and their reaction to the headline was different. Not fear, more like a shrug. It won't be there for us anyway, why plan around it? That shrug has a price too, and it's the opposite one. If Marcus and Dana write Social Security off entirely and it pays even the do-nothing floor, 78%, they will have oversaved against a ghost, worked years longer than they needed to, or underspent their 50s bracing for a zero that was never in any report. The report's actual worst case for them, whatever their projected benefits are, times 0.78. That's the floor to plan against. The smart version of caution for a couple 10 years out is simple. Pull your real projected numbers from your Social Security statement, plan your savings rate against the 78% floor, and treat everything above the floor as upside. That's it, not 0, not 100. 78, pending whatever Congress does. And on that, the past has something specific to say. And let me put one worked example on Marcus and Dana's side of the table, because plan against the floor sounds nice and vague until it's dollars. Say their statements project a combined $3,400 a month at full retirement age. The floor, 3,400 times 0.78, about $2,650. So the official worst case costs them roughly $750 a month. Using the common 4% planning shorthand, not an exact figure, your mileage varies. Plugging that gap takes roughly $225,000 of savings. Sounds enormous, until you remember they have 10 years and options, catch-up contributions, or simply delaying their claim, which raises the check for life. That's the difference between the headline and the number. The headline says their retirement is doomed. The number says, cover about half a car payment's worth of monthly gap, and you've fully hedged the worst case the government itself projects. Because here's the part of this story almost nobody in your feed brings up. We have run this exact experiment before. In the early 1980s, Social Security's trust fund came within months, not years, of being unable to pay full benefits. The actuaries had a date, July 1983, checks short. What happened? In April 1983, about 3 months before the cliff, Congress passed a big bipartisan fix, and President Reagan signed it. Payroll tax schedule, retirement age moved gradually, benefits partially taxable for higher incomes, pieces from both parties' lists, everyone unhappy, program funded for decades. I'm not telling you that to say, relax, it always works out. That's its own lazy slogan. I'm telling you the shape of the pattern. Washington fixes Social Security late, ugly, and at the last minute. But the one thing it has never done is let the checks stop. Every fear video is betting you don't know that history. Now you do. Which raises the real question for the next 6 years. What does a fix actually look like this time? Here's the honest menu Congress is choosing from. Every serious proposal is some mix of these 4 levers, and you'll notice both current plans live on this list. Lever 1. Bring more money in. Raise the payroll tax rate, or tax wages above the cap, which is what H.R. 9519 does with earnings over $400,000. Lever 2. Slow the growth of future benefits, usually aimed at higher earners or younger workers, almost never at people already collecting. Even the proposals that scare headlines write in protections for current retirees. Lever 3. Move dates, the retirement age drifting up for people decades from retiring, like 1983 did. Lever 4. Change the inflation formula, which can cut quietly, or in Larson's version, actually pay more. That's the whole toolbox. Notice what's not in it. any serious proposal from either party that stops or slashes checks for people already retired. The politics of that are radioactive, and both parties know it. There's a reason Johnson's walkback said, "Not a single benefit," and Larson's bill is an increase. The fight is real, the deadline is real, the fix will probably be late and ugly, and your check arriving is not actually the thing in question. So let's answer the title honestly. Will Social Security really be cut 22% in 2032? Here's the verdict, half true. The 2032 date, real from the trustees themselves. The 22%, real as the report's do-nothing scenario. Your check goes to zero. False, the payroll pipe funds 78% indefinitely. The cut has been decided. False, nothing has been introduced that cuts anything. The only actual bill on the table raises benefits. Claim early before it's gone. Worse than false, it's the one move that turns a possible 22% cut into a guaranteed 30% one. The honest sentence is this. Congress has 6 years and a very loud alarm clock. Both parties are on record promising not to touch current benefits, and the math says even total gridlock leaves you 78 cents on the dollar. Serious, worth watching, not the apocalypse your feed is selling. So here's your short list for this week, and the first one is the 2 minutes I promised. 1. Go to ssa.gov/myaccount and open your Social Security statement. It shows your projected monthly benefit at 62, at full retirement age, and at 70. 2. Take the number for the age you actually plan to claim and multiply it by 0.78. Write that down. That is your floor. The worst case in the official report, the number to plan groceries and rent against. Not zero. Your floor. 3. Do not change your claiming date because of a headline. If you were planning to wait until 67, wait. The early claiming cut is permanent and certain. The 2032 cut is neither. And 4. If you want to follow this story like an adult instead of a hostage, watch 2 things. Whether the Johnson plan ever becomes actual bill text next year and whether HR 9519 picks up co-sponsors. Those 2 facts will tell you more than 1,000 thumbnails. That's it. 4 steps, 1 evening, and this headline never costs you sleep, or 30% of your check. Again, if this took a headline that's been sitting in your chest and turned it into one number you can actually plan around, that's exactly what this channel is for. One loud retirement claim a week, checked against the actual rule, calmly. I've got the full breakdown on when to claim Social Security, the real 62 versus 67 versus 70 math, and the episode on whether your benefits get taxed, both linked below. Type yes in the comments if you ran your floor number, because I read them, and it genuinely tells me what to check next. And send this one to somebody over 60 who's seen that red arrow. One person, the one you thought of just now, because the difference between them panicking and them planning is 14 minutes of honest math. Subscribe if you want the next one. Where you retire changes what you keep, how your state taxes your retirement income, and why 2 identical retirees in 2 different states can end up thousands apart every single year. I'm Jeffrey, and when the next scary headline comes, and it's already rendering in somebody's studio, remember what this video was actually about. Check the rule, not the slogan. One important note before you go. This is educational only, not personal financial advice, and not a prediction of what Congress will do. The numbers here, the 2032 projection, the 22% do-nothing scenario, the 78% floor, come from the 2026 Social Security Trustees Report and the sources linked in the description as of July 2026. Projections change with each year's report, and legislation can change everything. Run your own numbers on your own statement and talk to a financial professional before you change your claiming date, your withdrawals, or your plan.